When the Guardians of Peace threatened a 9/11 style attack on cinemas that showed a Sony Pictures film, well, most likely The Interview, the internet responded with outrage when Sony decided not to release the movie. Every corner of the web seemed to classify this as an un-American act of cowardice that violated the First Amendment, basing their concerns over North Korea's infringement of our freedom of speech. However, this content-centric view erases the role of film as a medium that shapes and is shaped by a particular social context. By this point, the movie had already finished production. The content of the film had already been inscribed, so what the Guardians of Peace took issue with was a public showing of the content, or the mode of inscription that would render the content visible. So this doesn't really seem like freedom of speech. So in order to analyze this, I'll use Gitelman's theory of media as a historical body that shapes and are shaped by their social contexts. So I hope to reframe the conversation about The Interview. Instead of considering it a means to stop the spread of content, I want to view this as an attempt to challenge the movie as a medium by arresting a global network of capitalism. Moreover, I consider the pro-American sentiment attached to watching The Interview as an attempt to renegotiate norms of representation and entertainment when traditional means are foreclosed. So to do this, I'm going to do an archaeology of a kinetoscope to establish the norms of representation and networks of capital that form the basis of modern film. That way we can look at norms for viewing for a medium that we are not so familiar with. So at first the kinetoscope was popular as a projection device, not just as a means to content. And originally vaudeville houses would market these as special editions, such as the Vitascope or Edison's latest marvel. And to attract consumers, companies and investors would lease the technology, shorts, and services to vaudeville markets. But later on, manufacturers began to sell both the projectors and the film to itinerant exhibitors who would travel along the country. To protect themselves against these independent exhibitors, theater owners created basically a large monopoly known as the Motion Picture Patent Company, which controlled every aspect of film. So by constructing this very simplistic archaeology of the kinetoscope, I hope to show the mutually constitutive relationship between the medium and society. Part of film's appeal as a medium comes from its ability to spread content across the globe, like a global village, hence my global village. But cultural homogenization through the medium of film isn't just Americanization, but negotiation between cultures. For instance, each international division head at Sony edited The Interview to make sure the film would be successful across borders. The multinational negotiations also illustrated that these countries have instilled a similar expectation of what counts as acceptable representation. So therefore, the threats of the film seemed all the more surprising because they problematized the idea of a globally accepted norm of representation. So the nationalist rhetoric defending the film might seem more like an attempt to assert a particular form of correct representation when the original is denied. The anger at not being able to watch any movie, quote, we damn well please, also misses a central aspect of film, namely that to see a movie in a theater, you need to pay $12. So situating this as an infringement of speech ignores the norms associated with this medium that already restrict certain classes from ever seeing content. The Guardians of Peace threats situate itself between the military and the entertainment industry, because they could have taken issue with foreign policy, but instead focused on Seth Rogen's film. So this suggests that Western audiences consider the network of capital associated with movies as integral as a sovereign army. The hack also challenged the normal timeline of film, where movies show content which later become available on home screening devices. And as an archaeology of film indicated, the physical establishments of cinemas played a key role in developing the modern medium. So by denying the consumers access to this more realistic showing of the interview, the Guardians of Peace challenged social norms about how to view film. So nationalist rhetoric attests less to ensuring the United States can control content, but rather they reaffirm film as a unique medium, as well as the norms of consumption associated with it.